Welcome to AEC Stories. This is former SM3 Dempsey. This is the first international AEC Stories podcast from the USS Mount Hood crew, being done from California to Naples, Italy, with former BM1 Ziemer on the ship, who later retired as a senior chief. And welcome aboard, shipmate. Nice to talk to you.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me. I've been listening to a few of these. Got kind of interested when I saw everybody gathering for the reunion a few months ago. I wasn't able to make that. The schedule didn't work out. But it got me energized and been following a lot of your guys. Looks pretty good.
It's a trip. How does it come across to you? I mean, listening to the podcast and some of your fellow shipmates and some that may or may not have been on, but they were on in the similar era when you were on the ship.
It's kind of interesting. It's kind of neat hearing things from different people's perspective. You know, a lot of the folks you've had have been, well, other than ops boss John Joyner, everybody was kind of junior or mid-grade. And
right.
I'd be interested to see if you could, you know, when you get more senior people on board, you know, see what their perspective was, see what they thought of things.
Yeah, I'd like to get Bosun Johnson.
Big Ed.
The master of management. I mean, I was never under Bosun Johnson, but he was a hellion. But that was the era. I mean, people, they used to call him numbskulls and rocks, and they weren't really good listeners sometimes. So you needed somebody that could break through that communication gap there, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wake those kids up. You're managing people that needed to get it together a year ago.
He was a community. he had a particular set of skills. No, he was a good, you know, and a lot of people didn't care much for his style, and there were parts of his leadership style that I didn't utilize that I didn't put in my toolbox. But
right.
A lot of folks don't really realize that he left the ship before we went to Desert Storm, and we received quite a few accolades for our performance over there, and our performance in Desert Storm directly attributed to his preparation of the crew before we deployed. And a lot of guys don't realize that. You know, the USS Americas, who we were assigned to in the Gulf, we showed up, most ships deploy with a battle group, and we showed up over there with nobody. We were assigned to the America, I believe. And every other day we were alongside, and they would give us a list of, you know, this is what we want. Get as much over to us as you can, because we have to launch at, you know, 08 or, you know, 8:30 or whatever. We have to start launching planes. And I don't think we never missed the mark. We always got everything over there. We were just setting it on fire, getting stuff over there.
Yeah, it's like having the greatest football coach ever, and then the team's already trained up and they go right into the big game.
Yeah,
and it's like any other day for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, Jimmy Johnson retires, and whoever came in after him wins the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing as the slot machine in Vegas, man.
Spencer wins the Super Bowl or somebody because of Jimmy Johnson's team. Yeah, that happens.
So what years were you on the Mount Hood again?
87 to 91, 4 years and 10 months of my life. That was the longest I've lived anywhere. I think maybe since I was a kid was on the Mount Hood.
Wow. I have the same thing as you. I mean, I've been living in the same apartment for 3 years. That's a world record. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've moved 47 times in my life. So, and I'm 49. So maybe I need to catch up. I don't know.
Or slow down, one of the two.
Something, man. I mean, home is, you know, I don't know. I always grew up with this idea that home was some place where you owned a piece of property, but it's not even that. Not when you're one of these kind of guys. The Rolling Stone gathers no moss, right?
Yeah. You know, sometimes, you know, I think the last job I was there for 6 years, and gosh, I don't know, I spent the last 3 probably looking for work, you know, just trying to get away. And, you know, not that I didn't enjoy what I was doing, but it just seemed odd, you know, being placed more than a few years. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're like, I need to catch up with whatever's moving out there. You're like, why are you hitchhiking on the weekend? I just want to be taken somewhere random. I need a new experience.
Something different. Yeah.
So where are you from originally?
Oregon.
Oregon?
Yep.
Okay. Get a few guys up there. Get Teresi, get EW2 Griffith.
Mm-hmm. There were quite a few people.
Derek Hill.
I ran into Derek Hill in 2005.
Oh, wow. Portland or?
A little town called Canby, Oregon. I was coming through. I think I was getting ready to retire. I was working at maybe the recruiting district in Portland, and I was with my girlfriend, future wife, who was from that area as well. Just driving through, stopped at a place called the Wild Hare, Hare, in Canby, Oregon. And I was looking at this guy, and he's over playing pool, and I thought, I know that guy. And I went over and I said, I know you from Mount Hood. And he said, I've been to Mount Hood in a long time, because the mountain's right there. And I said, no, the Mount Hood.
I haven't skied since '87, bro.
Yeah.
That one time I jumped over those people in the ski jump, that was me. No, the ship, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was playing pool. Yeah, Derek, we talked a little bit. He had, I think when he got out of the Navy, he built some businesses up, auto detailing business or something, got a little kind of, I don't know if he franchised it, what he did, but he ended up selling it, I think. And then I don't know if he went into real estate or something after that, mortgages or real estate, but something. He seemed to be doing okay.
Mortgages.
He seemed to be doing okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's in the mortgage business. And, I don't know, I was in that for a while too. It was the great business to be in. It was the .com of, other jobs you can do without a boss.
Yeah.
But, ultimately your customer's your boss.
Yeah.
So you were born in Oregon, and how did you end up, which year and when did you decide to join the Navy? Like, why did you pick the Navy versus anything else? Did you have family in it, or did you prefer it over the Marines? What was your decision-making process?
I did have family that was in the Navy. My uncle was in the Navy for about a little over 20 years, I think 24. So I was finished with school. I was about 16. Finished meaning I was just done with it. I don't know if they were done with me yet. And I decided, and I had taken two of my buddies they were going to join the Navy. They were going to go in on the buddy program, and two local guys there that I grew up with, and they were going to join the Navy. And I dropped them off at the recruiter, and then went and did what I was going to pick them up, took them home. And then, they were going through the process and found out one of them had a heart murmur and he wasn't going to be allowed to go. So the other guy says, well, God, I really want somebody to go with. I don't know if I want to do this by myself or whatever. And I said, well, I'm not doing anything for the next 3 or 4 years. I'll go with you. So, we made the phone calls and got signed up, and it took some tests, and my parents signed my life away for me because, like I said, I was 16, just turning 17 when I left to go to boot camp. So they signed all. Wow. So they had to sign everything for me, and then so I did. Went to boot camp in San Diego and started my career, which was only 4 years at the time.
How was boot camp back then? I mean, what year was that exactly?
81, September 81.
So was it a little more roughneck, you think? I mean, obviously more roughneck than now. Was it more drill, company commanders were a little harsher and?
It was just more physical, not physical like assault, but physical, just a lot more PT. And a lot more stress. I think they pushed you a little bit harder. I had the opportunity in 2000, I think October of 2000, to go back to boot camp in Great Lakes for 3 days. I actually lived in a barracks, went back as a senior chief when I was going through
Oh, cool.
I was attending the Senior Enlisted Academy in Rhode Island at the War College, and went back to basic training for 3 days to see what they do. And we had the opportunity to PT with some guys that had been there about a week. And after we PT'd with them, then we went and PT'd because their PT wasn't what ours was. But they'd only been there a week or so I get that. But yeah, it's just a lot different, no running in boondockers. I mean, when we got there, you marched, the only time you wore your tennis shoes was during scheduled PT, and that didn't happen very often.
Right.
Usually it was just to
make the room sweat in your boondockers and your dungarees and your.
Oh, just Well, we didn't do that much inside in San Diego. We were outside quite a bit, unless it got dark, and then we were probably making too much noise, so we had to go back inside. But people live around there.
Did you guys have the smoking lamp? Were you guys allowed to smoke in boot camp or no?
Yes, yeah, we were. Funny story, I heard, you were talking to Dalton the other night. He was talking about, sailors getting there, you get to boot camp and, you're up late, you go to MEPS early in the morning, you get to basic training, you're up there late at night, and the bus catches you at the airport and brings you over. And I had a similar experience to him. we showed up there and the sailors are lounging around, smoking and coking and waiting for the bus, and the Marines are all lined up at attention, facing the bulkhead or something, waiting for their bus, to go off to MCRD. And and we get on the bus, and there's this guy, and I think he ended up being a second class after I figured out what the rates were. And we're on the bus, and he says, we're getting ready to get off the bus, and he says something like, you guys don't want to get caught with any contraband, so you guys need to throw all your cigarettes and lighters right here in this box before you head out. Okay. So, and then as soon as we get off the bus, we line up and, get yelled at a little bit in boot camp and take your piss test. And then, and they say, okay, take 5, smoke if you got them. Well, none of us had cigarettes because the asshole on the bus just said, hey, you don't want to get caught with any contraband. Leave all your cigarettes and lighters here.
Oh, he was just hustling. He was a good old cigarette scammer. I mean, come on, they were what, 35 cents a pack back then.
I don't know.
Now he would have parlayed. I mean, gosh, 100 packs at $10 a piece. He would have done well.
It got crazy though. Like, we could smoke. We could have coffee, smoke and coke, candy, whatever you wanted. Back then. You could keep cigarettes in your locker. Your little bead drawer or whatever it was. It wasn't a problem. We had designated times to smoke. And they would even say, okay, you're going to fire school, so make sure you take your cigarettes with you. If you take it, they would say if you're going someplace, you weren't going to be able to get back to the barracks within a couple hours to have a cigarette break. They would, make sure you were somewhere where you could, that somebody would, or that, here, give them all to, we had a yeoman or something, he had a little ditty bag, and you'd throw all your cigarettes in there, and he would pack them all, and then we'd get there and everybody'd smoke. But boot camp, when I was there in 2000, those guys not only couldn't, I think I still smoked then in 2000 when I was in Great Lakes, and we found a little spot behind the laundry where they did all the tailoring and dry cleaning for the recruits, and there was a little bitty smoking area back there for the civilians, and we were able to slide back there and have a couple cigarettes. But other than that, there was just no smoking on Great Lakes. And, when you see people drinking Cokes for breakfast, why are you drinking Coke? They said, because it has caffeine. They don't allow us to have coffee. I don't know what the hell they're doing, but it's just crazy. No caffeine, no cigarettes. I don't know how the Navy could live.
Well, the interesting part is cigarettes are the downside of them. I started smoking again recently. I got to stop again, but it's a nootropic. And that's why people like it. It makes you think. That's why people have great conversations when they have a cigarette. It actually stimulates the mind, the nicotine. That's the side effect. And then the coffee just makes the mind go in circles. So it's a great full circuit there, right?
Oh, Jesus.
So what was your, you went there, or did you intend on being, working in deck, or did you have an A school, or what was your situation?
Oh, when we first went to MEPS or AFES, I think it was MEPS back then. My friend and I were going to go in, and he was going to be MR, machinery repairman, working lathes and stuff, and I was supposed to go into avionics. And then they started, and then we went to sign the contracts, and he was going in for 4 years, and I was going in for 6. And then we started talking, and I said, I didn't care much for school when I was there. Obviously, I'm here at 16. Is there something else I could do that didn't require much school? And then he says, hey, I want to go where he's going, because we want to go together and go to boot camp and school together, A school together. And so they said, come on, boats, we got something for you. And they sent us to that seaman apprenticeship. And so we both ended up going through seaman apprenticeship. We both ended up in Japan on our first ship together, the USS Midway.
Wow. The Midway, what a big old ship that was.
Yes. So we did.
Is that a museum? Is that a museum now, or is that still active?
San Diego. Oh, it's been decommissioned for years, but it's a museum in San Diego.
Yeah, they have a restaurant on it. I walked by it on the pier. That was your ship. They're like, yeah, that used to be my car. Now it's parked.
Yes.
What was it like going to an aircraft carrier in Japan after coming from Oregon? How did that open your eyes?
Well, it was a different Navy, and it was a transitional Navy. They were just starting to end the drug years, after a couple big aircraft crashes and stuff, and they find out the whole flight deck crew's, on something, and probably the pilots too. So they were kind of coming down off of that. So there was a lot of, drug issues and drug testing and things like that. There was a lot of integration issues, you get to the ship and, all certain people are sleeping on one side of the berth and everybody else is sleeping on the other side, and then people are stuck in the middle. And there was just a lot of stuff like that going on. And coming from, in boot camp, you're just kind of, they throw 80 guys there and you get along, you figure it out.
Right.
Guys you never met before. You get to a ship, you have a little more leniency. Also, the thing about like uniforms. You show up in uniform. Most of the guys I knew that went overseas or went to their first ship, they took one set of civilian clothes and you kind of stuffed it in the bottom of your seat bag because you didn't even know if you were allowed to have that.
Wow.
Well, I don't know how it was when you went through A school. When we got our orders issued in apprenticeship training, everybody lines up there and they get their orders, and the guy says, "Let me just tell me your ship number, and I'll tell you anything you want to know about it." Okay, great. It's cold steel and it's going to go to sea, and that's all he told us. And okay, great. Thanks. Yeah.
Wow. So it was more of the rough man, the end of the drug era. When did that stop? The 70s? When they started giving your analysis?
Probably about 80, 79, 80 probably, I would think. I don't know. I know in 81, when I was in this, when they didn't necessarily bust you, but everybody, you still got a piss test. You would lose privileges like a school or something, but you didn't actually get NJP'd or anything at the time.
Oh, wow. They're like, you're going to have to stay on the ship for a week.
Yeah.
Smoke that naughty, wicked weed.
Yeah, don't do that again.
I mean, you're in Naples right now. When I was in high school, I played football there. And I remember how liberal it was. We're talking in, 83 maybe? And I was walking around the base on Naples, and all the vending machines had beer.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It was like, huh?
No.
Didn't see that on the Army base. I was like, damn, these Navy guys, they just know how to get down.
Well, when I was in boot camp, yeah, if you were able to get over to the NTC side, all the laundromats and all the lounges all had beer machines. It was kind of a thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a trip. Or, now the British people, they have a couple of pints a day, but they probably have more. They have beer day every day.
Yeah.
On their ships. And we didn't have that. And it seemed like such a privilege. But, because whenever you can't have something like, oh, they're allowed to chew gum.
Yeah. They're not in Singapore. They can chew gum. Yes.
So you went on the carrier. Where did you go for your first tour there? What countries did you hit?
Well, it was in Japan. It was in the yards. And our first underway, I think we went to Sasebo, Japan, and loaded out with our ammunition. Lots of bombs, which, being from deck, you would think that that'd be a lot of involvement for us, but it wasn't. We dropped the hook and went on Liberty, and the Japanese came out with barges and cranes and loaded everything on board. The gunners, mates, and AOs put it all away, and we didn't have anything to do with it. It was a pretty good deal, really. It got worse later when I got to ammo ships. Then it's all us. And then so I was on there for 2 years, and that first 2 years in the Navy, probably Sasebo a couple times because we probably went back again to drop arms off or reload or something. Subic Bay at least 10 times, I think. Probably, I know it was definitely 10 times. I think one time we did a dependence cruise out of Subic Bay and had more people on a dependence cruise out of Subic Bay than we did at the dependence cruise out of Yokosuka. I don't know how that worked.
It was like a cruise ship.
Yeah.
What a trip. Subic Bay. I mean, I get to go there.
And
what a place, man.
Hong Kong 5 times. Singapore. Oh, we weren't supposed to go to Singapore. We ended up there because we picked up some refugees and we had to have somewhere to drop them off. And so we took them to the embassy in Singapore, and we got 3 days liberty out of the deal. And then Busan, Korea a couple times. It was kind of, I never got to the Indian Ocean on that ship. I got off, as it was transiting to the Indian Ocean from Yokosuka. And that ended up being, I think, 124 days underway or some terrible amount, almost on their third beer day.
Wow. But I mean, being on the carrier, you guys had, you had mail on the regular basis because you had airplanes that could land. Somewhat. You had other things. What was better about that kind of duty than compared to the ammo ship?
Well, that carrier, the thing that was good about that ship was that we were always in Subic or Thailand or Singapore or Hong Kong or somewhere in the Orient, Asia. That was the best thing about that ship.
Living a luxury life.
And then when I transferred from there and went from an aircraft carrier to a FFG, that was a huge transition. Going from a ship with 4,000 or 5,000 people, to a ship that had, 250 people, 225 people. That was a big transition.
Where was that? Where was the FFG station at?
Long Beach, California.
Okay.
So
was that good duty out there?
So backing up a little bit. So my buddy that, we joined the Navy together and we changed, we drop our schools, like dummies,
Mm-hmm.
and say, yeah, we want to go hang out on first ship together. So he goes and he calls for orders to get to the States. And then Yakutsk at the time, probably like when you were in Italy, you couldn't just go pick up a phone and call someplace. It
was expensive, very like $8 a minute.
Well, there were so for us to call the States to call the detailer, we had to go to the career counselor on the base's office, and you had to go there at midnight or something, so it'd be the right time of day, midnight on the right day, because I think it's an 18-hour time difference between there and Tennessee or DC or wherever the bureau was at the time. So he comes back to the ship and says, yeah, I'm going to a frigate in Long Beach. I said, oh, that's cool. So I went and talked to the detail, and he didn't tell me the name or anything. So I, a few days later, I go have a night off, whatever. I go over to the career counselor on base, and I call the detailer, negotiating some orders. And he says, hey, got you on a frigate in Long Beach. I said, okay. And I mean, that's the way it was back then. I called the detailer up and I said, what do you got for me? He says, hey, I got you slated for a frigate in Long Beach. And I said, okay, thanks. And I hung up. There was no negotiating. Just went where they told you.
Right.
And it ended up being a pre-com unit. So we actually ended up going to San Diego, and we were on the same ship again. So we did our entire 4 years together.
What was the name of that ship?
The USS Rents.
The frigate?
The Rents, FFG 46.
Okay. I was wondering if it was the Kurtz. I go, what? You and Dalton were in the same ship and you didn't know it?
But
he was on the Kurtz around the same time.
And he was a few years before. Yeah, about the same time. Yeah. We were we went to the Davis, did the pre-commissioning crew, commissioned it. Only did about just over a year after it got commissioned, and then we both got out of the Navy. And you get out after the frigate? Yeah. Yeah.
How many years in had you been in by now?
4 years.
Okay, so 2 and 2.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
It was, yeah. So that's what I was used to. 2 years here, 2 years there. I got out. I was a second class. I made second class in I think 3 years. I get out. I go back to Oregon. It's one of those things where I decided I had orders to go to Naval Absentee Collection Unit, going around picking up deserters. But
like that movie with Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
Last Detail.
Yeah, but but by then it was civilian clothes, and you're flying around the world picking up guys that they found in, Little Rock, Arkansas or something. You got to go pick them up and bring them back.
Yeah.
They're just trying to clean up all the roles, all the people that they had still UA from the Vietnam era when everybody bailed.
All the AWOL, all the UA as we called it.
Yes.
Yeah. The guys who just run away from the military and go hide out, and think you'll never find them, the deserters, basically. Yeah.
So I had follow-on orders to that kind of, I don't know what they call them, like penciled in or something. And then I don't know, I was underway on the ship, and it was like a Monday or Tuesday we got underway, and I was supposed to get out of the Navy on Saturday or sign my extension. And when we pulled in Thursday afternoon, I just told the XO, I changed my mind, I'm going to get out. Because I would have to stay there another 6 months and go through rough trade again. And it was just, I had kind of been the LPO of my division for a while, and I kind of got a taste of that. And then when I came back, I went on leave for a couple weeks. When I came back, there was a first class there, and I didn't really want to work with anybody for a while, and I was kind of immature, and I spent most of my life being immature. You'll probably see that if we keep the conversation going. But so I was like, what, screw you. I'm getting out.
I was the boss. Yeah. You're not the boss now. Damn it. Why is he the boss?
Who runs Watertown?
Took away my boss rank. He doesn't even know this ship. I should be in charge of him. Get below me, first class.
Yeah, something. I don't know. It was just one of those things where it was just kind of, what to do. And I want to re-enlist. I want to sign up. So I got out and went back to Oregon and, got a job at building car washes, I think, manufactured a metal shop, manufacturing car washes. And then I went and I got a job, after that, building diving boards and stuff like that. It was good work. It was fun work. They didn't pay crap. I didn't know how to market myself. I had gone for a couple decent jobs. But they said, you're too young and you don't have education. You're only 21. I mean, I'm getting out of the Navy at 21 with 4 years as an E5, and
you've got real world experience. We just didn't know how to translate that to a resume.
I had no idea.
If I'd have done it sooner, I would have had a killer job somewhere.
I had no idea how to market myself. None whatsoever. Didn't, and back then we had a really, really crappy, GI Bill that I think you paid in $900 and you got $2,700 for college, which was,
oh my,
yeah. Oh my goodness. Post 9/11.
You could get a nice associate's degree at a junior college that isn't even ranked.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. It was good. So, and while I was out, I got married and had a child on the way. And so I said, well, I know where I can go and I know the system. And so I came back to the Navy. I was out about a year and a half, I guess I was out. Year and 3 months.
I could see, based on the jobs you described, I can see why you went back to sea, because you're like, yeah, but you look 20 years down the road and then you think about how many places you'll sail on a ship, how much adventure, all that stuff. I don't know, at least I would.
And most of the places most of the people that I knew that had any kind of success in industry had the same last name as the guy that owned the company. So
family biz.
So the guy that's my age is, the cousin's daughter's nephew's husband or something. That's, he's the foreman, he's the walk-in boss, and I'm just the grunt, because even though I may have a better handle on what we're doing than him, I don't have the same name. But that's okay.
Wow.
So I went back to the Navy, and it wasn't a terrible thing. I called the detailer, work with a recruiter, call the detailer. Her name was, what was her name? Mary LaRoche. BM1 Mary LaRoche.
Wow, you get great recall, my friend. Great recall. Well,
there's more to this. There's more to the story. So I get, she ended up being my LCPO on a ship later. I ran into her again. So I call her and I say, here's the deal. I just got married. I'm coming back in. I've got a baby on the way, due in the spring. I really, don't want to deploy right away. I'm come back in December. What do you got for me? I'd like to be in the Bay Area because it's close to Oregon. I come home weekend, stuff like that. And she says, well, I got 2 AEs down there. I got the whatever it is, and the Pyro, or Mauna Kea Pyro, something like that, and the Mount Hood. And I said, well, which one's not going on deployment right away? And she goes, well, I think the Mount Hood just came off a deployment, so that's when you should go. Okay, great. So I report to it. I get my orders, and I see that it's in Hawaii, and I'm thinking, okay, well, it's probably just out there doing a cruise or something. It'll be back. So I report, and with no internet, no connectivity, no sponsors, I report to the ship 6 days into a world cruise. Oh, okay. That's nice.
You're like, we'll be back home in a while.
I'll see you in 175 days. Yeah. And so,
oh my God.
So that was, January of 87. So I report there as a second class. And, that's when I first met, Bosun Johnson.
Oh, wow.
and Senior Chief Heights. It's my first,
They were still there.
Oh, they were. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Was Chief Hill on then, or did he come on a little later?
No. We had a SMC. The SMC was a little bit taller guy, kind of younger than Hill, I think. But I think he was a little bit about the same girth, but a little bit taller. Heron, something like that. Gray-haired guy.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Muter knew who he was. Did you know SM2 Muter, who later became SM2, and Hill? They were on the ship when you were on there.
Yeah.
And Dalton was on there, I think.
I knew Dalton.
No.
I knew Hill. I knew Dalton. I knew Muter. I knew Stroud, Farnham. Yeah. Yeah. And SMC Hill. Oh, yeah.
And then you knew, you had Teresi was on board for that cruise, too.
Dave Teresi. Yep.
Young Dave.
Yep.
Young Dave, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I don't know who else was there of that also. I'm trying to think. You know better than me, because I showed up in 88, like February after you guys get back. March, actually.
There were a lot of guys that got off there right, between that deployment and shortly after that.
What was the best port of call on that cruise? Or let's say the most interesting.
I don't know. So I came back halfway through the cruise for a couple weeks, so I missed the Seychelles. I was there. I reported aboard for the one night in Pearl Harbor at Navmag Lualua. We were a hell of a boat ride from actually Pearl Harbor. I think it was only there one night. I think. No, we didn't do boats that time. I don't know how they did it.
We didn't have Liberty boats back then.
Oh yeah, we did when we were in Hong Kong, or when we were in later on, subsequent years when we were in Hawaii. We would use our own 33-foot boats from the NavMag into Fleet Landing at Pearl Harbor. We had our 33-foot boats. We used them quite a bit. We used them in Guam. We used them in Taormina, Sicily.
Were you on board when we get stuck on the reef in that boat? I remember being. I was on beard up and like.
I was on board the ship or on board or on shore. I was not on board the boat. No.
I was on that ride.
Were you?
It was weird. I was on there, BM2, and they ran aground on that boat.
BM2 Jones was driving. BM3 Jones probably. Ensign Darrow was or Lieutenant J.G. Darrow was the boat officer. That was crazy. Wow. That was crazy. I remember Bosun Johnson came out on a port operations boat, just yelled and screamed at him and told him to go to sleep, and he'd pick him up in the morning or something.
I love Bosun Johnson.
Well, they had the crew. I mean, the passengers get out, put on life jackets. At least they put on life jackets and got out of the boat to try to rock the boat and lift the boat and get it off of the off the rocks. And the tide was going out; it wasn't coming in.
I was there. I was like buzzed off my ass drinking beer, and I'm watching these guys stand on top of the water. It's kind of dark. I'm like, how are they walking on water? Oh my gosh, it's Jesus' brothers.
Well, I think Bosun had, they had port ops or somebody from the shoreside go and with a shallower draft, obviously, and fetch the people off of there and get them to where they needed to be. And then they left the boat crew on all night. The boat wasn't damaged that much. It didn't breach the hull or anything. It just roughed up the hull a little bit. And, I remember because Mad Max Donaldson, BMC, did all the repairs. He got his
you know who was what? I mean, I remember that we had to take those Liberty boats. One time we pulled in Hawaii. I don't remember exactly what, Westpac or not. Mm-hmm. There was this really nice woman who was probably 3 times my size, but she was really nice. And she was the bartender on the base, on the ammo base. And she's like, take my car. You're not going to steal it or take it anywhere. You can use my car. I go, we're hammered. Can you drive us around? So she was really cool. She drove us off the base and took us out clubbing.
Oh, cool.
It was great. And then one of my shipmates, who was probably a third her size, was trying to make out with her.
Well,
and she's like, no, it's okay, little guy. No, don't bother. He was trying to hug her. He couldn't, but it was entertaining.
I imagine so.
What a polite way to put that in a nautical lifestyle, right? Yeah. But, the episode I did the other day, not to take you off all timeline, but the one was Sailor Beware, right? Mm-hmm. How many young guys did you see get gaffled, marry the wrong woman, have these like sea vultures waiting outside the gate to just marry a young sailor and take most of his pay? How often did you see that happen in your career?
Everybody. I mean, it happened almost to, I would say, 60% of the guys, maybe. Either maybe they didn't get married, but at least they had somebody that was going to be at some point dishonest and treat them terribly and use them and abuse them. I mean, almost everybody that happened to, I mean, myself included. I mean, my goodness, it was.
Me too.
You make the wrong decisions for the wrong reason at the wrong time, but. For whatever, everybody had their own reasons for doing it. I mean, some guys did it just so they didn't have to live on the ship, I think. But, and
keep a girlfriend so they can have HBO and eat TV dinners and not have to eat mess hall food.
Someplace to keep your beer cold. Yeah. You get tired of drinking the beer out of the trunk of your car. You got to have somewhere. You got a refrigerator somewhere. And it wasn't, it wasn't so bad later on, but when I first joined the Navy, the first couple ships, if you were on board and something was going down, you were automatically part of the duty section. And I mean, I could see if it was a fire or something, but it might just be, hey, the hangar's dirty. We need somebody to come clean it up. Grab, get your uniform on. But I'm watching TV and it's not my duty today. Okay. Get your uniform on and come, then, do it in your gym clothes. I don't care. You kind of got drafted.
Yeah, that's true. You get sucked into everything that way.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. You're like, well, I don't care if it's your day off. You better either get off the ship or get to working.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
What a trip. But I came on the ship in when we were in San Francisco. We were over there in the pier getting worked on. Pier 38.
Seco Engineering Company or something like that. Seco.
Yeah, I think Sip and another guy went to work for them later after the Mount Hood over in Alameda or something. But it's interesting how the whole story plays out. Were you living? Did you have an apartment out there during that time?
I had I remember the previous conversation we just had. No, I had a wife in Concord.
Yeah. So, I'm just saying, you guys were living up in Concord, right?
I thought you meant I staying off the ship?
No, I wasn't trying to entrap you on anything.
No.
Did you have a private Disco Rick James palace somewhere, right?
No, we had a house out in Concord, which you think it's okay. Yeah. The thing with that ship was there was no really good. People lived in Concord. People lived, a little south Danville. People lived on base in Vallejo. People lived in Alameda. Some people lived actually in San Francisco or over on that side. But there was
what was over the Golden Gate Bridge, right over there, Marin County. They had a base housing over there.
Vallejo, I think, Mare Island.
Well, no, but by Marin County, County over
by Sausalito.
Derek Hill had a place over there.
By Sausalito, I don't know. But there was no good place to live because on that ship you never knew you were going to be in San Francisco. One time we were in Hunters Point, Oakland, Concord, Alameda, Mare Island. You never knew where you were. When you came home, you didn't. Don't leave your car in Concord. You might not be coming back there. You might not.
I was like, don't even buy a car because you're never going to get to use it because you're always underway.
Yeah, well, we were underway quite a bit. We couldn't deploy for a long time after that gas turbine generator blew, but
over in PI.
No, that was the rudder. That was a rudder incident. The gas turbine thing blew on the way back from Hawaii once. We were doing some ops.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we drifted for a couple days, drained all the fruits and veg, cooked by barbecue grill up topside. Yeah, we were DIW for a couple days. Probably midway between LA or between California and Hawaii, just bobbing around.
Dead in the water.
Yep. Dead.
It's funny. I had no idea. And I was this, what year was that?
I don't know about that one. It would have probably been 88, 80.
Okay. So I might not have been on yet. Okay.
Late,
I don't
late
remember
87,
that.
early 88. But it was one of those things, we were in the berth and you heard that thing go, you thought the ship just blew up. That thing.
What a trip. So, what did you like about the Mount Hood different than some of the other ships you were on?
So on my first ship, like I said, it went everywhere. It did everything. We were, chasing down Russians and landed an F-14. One of those things, hadn't been done, I don't think. We had little F-4s and A-4s, little tiny planes compared to what the big carriers had. But we did unrep quite a bit, receiving fuel, receiving cargo. We had one fuel rig, go to the Mount Hood, go to the Frigate, and on the Frigate, you're kind of a watchstander. I mean, that's just it. You're going around and the sonar guys are chasing stuff and the combat systems guys, the EWs are listening to stuff and the combat systems guys are ready to shoot stuff. But other than that, you're just we're just a watchstander, a passenger. And then you go to.
So it was more action on the Frigate. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it was more action, like sub hunting and stuff.
Yeah, but it didn't involve me. So it was a pretty boring ship.
I respect that.
And we were a pre-com unit, so like Dalton said, for 6 months you don't do anything. You get the ship, you commission it, you go try to break it for 6 months, and you go back to the yards. And you come out of the yards and go through rough tray, and then you transfer. I mean, most people that commission a ship never deploy on it because it doesn't even get through its workup cycle before it's time for you to transfer. So then you get to the Mount Hood, and it was a working ship. It was you're moving cargo, you're moving fuel, you have a mission, that you support, that deck supports. Even as a signalman, on the destroyers and on the frigates, you're a watchstander. You're looking out for stuff. You're helping things, along. And when you go alongside the unrep ships, you're communicating. But on the on the AE or the auxiliary ships, I mean, you're communicating all the time. You're alpha, and you're who's where. We're out here lining up for unrep and stuff like that, and you are actually communicating a lot with the other ships, and as deck department and weapons, we have what they need, and so you're actually doing your job, and that was kind of nice, and kind of feeling, and you get to feel like more of a, when I was on the carrier, we called ourselves the unrep specialist, but no, not until you get over to AE. And even as far as auxiliaries go, AE was probably unrep light compared to AORs and AFS that just had a lot of cargo and a lot of fuel. But
we only carried one type of supply, and like the AOR. One of the guys that I'm going to release Monday, he went to like an AoE up there in Bremerton where you were at. And he was telling me, it was a lot bigger crew. You carried fuel, you carried weapons, you carried supplies. And I just looked it up last night because I hadn't looked at Jane's fighting ships in a long time. They're actually a little bit faster, even though they're bigger than the Mount Hood, because they got to get to places quicker to supply people, I guess.
Well, they had to keep up with the battle group.
Yeah. So they're 25 knots, where the Mount Hood was only 20. I think the Mount Hood went faster than 20. Did you ever see it any higher than 20?
22 maybe. Normally 12 to 16. But
what was unrep speed? About 12 to 16
that was
usually?
12 to 16, yeah.
Okay. Iron Mike.
No, not during unrep. Unrep, you had to keep driving. But we did, so, when we were, say, on that world cruise, we did a lot of what's called airhead ops at Almasira, Oman. We would go in twice a week, and they would land a big cargo plane, and we would send our helos over with our flight deck, our cargo nets, and break down the pallets that came off the airplane, load them up, bring them out, and then transfer them to the fleet. So we were the ones that were going and getting the mail and the cargo twice a week for God, we must have did that for a month and a half, and that's all we had to do out there. I heard you talking to Dalton the other day about the World Cruise. So we were slated to go all through Europe. We were supposed to shoot through, hit Hawaii, hit the Philippines, Hong Kong, shoot through, do a brief stint in the Indian Ocean, straight up through the Red Sea, and go and hang out and do. I think we had a couple ports in France, Spain, and Italy. And the Stark got blown up. The Stark took those Exocet missiles through the I think the port side of the superstructure, and that.
Did somebody shoot them, or did they blow up in the ship?
Iranian.
How did that happen?
I think it was Iranian. I don't recall.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but they were French missiles. I think it was Iranian. I don't recall,
okay.
But it was. But I do know that jacked up the whole deployment, and that. So instead of having this wonderful world cruise, we ended up sitting in the Indian Ocean for an extra 2 months, and it kind of screwed up. And that's when we ended up in Seychelles and Mombasa, and I think we might have gone to Pakistan, but I don't think we got Liberty. I think we just drove Liberty boats for somebody else or some weird thing like that, which is okay. But then we hit Taormina, and I think it might have come down to we can hit a bunch of ports or we can just go home. And we hit Taormina, Sicily for a few days, and then St. Thomas straight through, stopped in Rodman, Panama for just a day, and then, like Dalton said, dropped the air debt off in San Diego and picked up shipwriters and went out to Concord.
Wow.
Yeah.
But what you're describing, I'm listening because this whole thing's a discovery process for me. I try not to say the same thing every time, but everybody's story, there's the biography edition, which, your first podcast usually is with me, which I'm trying to get every shipmate possible. But I will say that what you're describing is being on mission together. That's why there's such a bond with the ship, that you were actually doing your job all the time. There was more like a cohesive football team there. Where I could see in a carrier, the signalman, most people would never know who he was. He wouldn't know a guy in deck. You know what I mean? It was like that was a condo 18 blocks down the road. You know what I mean?
That is true. On my first ship, I knew most of deck department, and I knew an AT, and I knew a signalman because he used to be in deck. And, of course, we know the quartermasters because we stood watch with them. But, you know a couple boiler techs, a couple R division guys, but, unless you had something else in common with the guy, from your state or your hometown or something, you really didn't socialize much with people outside of your rate back then on a ship like that, on the carrier.
Yeah.
On the frigate, of course, you knew everybody.
I can only imagine. I mean, what was the frigate? Was that a fast little ship? I mean, Janes doesn't say they're that quick. It seemed like it was pretty quick. They call them fast frigates, and I'm like, yeah, but carriers get higher top speed. I was always obsessed with the speed. I had to memorize Jane's fighting ships.
A frigate did, I think, 33.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Usually.
That's significantly better than 20 knots.
Yeah. Yeah. When we would on that frigate, we'd be down. We were out of Long Beach. We'd go to San Diego for school, or we'd go down there on Monday and come back on Friday and things. And we would take up, or if we were down there for training, we would just be Piers side, and because it's cheaper to send guys to school, they just take the ship to San Diego, tie us up for a couple weeks. Everybody goes to all their schools and DCs, firefighting schools, all that stuff, and they just bring the ship back. We would, the guys that cast off your mooring lines in San Diego just got in the ship's van and drove up to Long Beach to tie you back up. Your line handlers were the same guys off your ship, and sometimes the ship was there before the line handlers.
Yeah, that was convenient as far as port of calls. If you're in a frigate, you could go more places easier on the Mount Hood because of what we carried. They'd always like Liberty Boat, Liberty Boat, sorry, we can't pull Pier side.
Yeah.
Based on NATO or whatever other reasons, right? Safety.
That, and it cost a lot of money to go Pier side.
Really?
Yeah, most places, unless they have a dedicated Navy, unless it's a Navy port or a Navy base and they let you use it, you're taking space from a commercial ship that the port would be getting money from. And most of we try to go in there on the cheap and say, well, we're going to come in here and spend a lot of money in your port, let us pull in. A place like Hong Kong. Well, Hong Kong had a couple piers right down there by Fenwick Pier that they had ships come into. But yeah, you're right. That was for the flagships. The ammo ships and the aircraft carriers all stayed back out. The destroyers and frigates could all moor to a buoy or something close to Fenwick Pier, and then the flagships were pier side.
I mean, when you were on the carrier, you're VIP, man. You're VIP. Best Liberty call, best everything.
Well, we were anchored way out. We were anchored way out, though.
Yeah, so was it a long process waiting to get in the Liberty Boat? Like, did it go by rank, or how did that work?
Not for deck. No, not for deck, because we would just go through the deck house, and we would just go through the quarterdeck, and they would save. So we'd go up there and say, okay, we have 5. So when they're counting to put the 200 people on the Liberty Boat, because they were huge, they would put 195, and then 5 of us would just scoot out past the OOD and go down on the ship, down on the boat. Because we stood on a carrier. You not only do stand boatsman the watch underway, you also stand it in port. So boatsman's the one passing the words, and you piped in port and stuff like that on that carrier. So, we always had a hookup. So there were long lines. It's just we didn't stand in them.
Oh, nice. You guys had it made. So it was better than signalman duty. Lucky you. I was on the Hornet the other day, and I was like on the signal bridge, and I'm like, what a whole different crazy signal bridge that would have been than versus the Mount Hood. I felt like I was spoiled on that ship. Mm-hmm. Because we had like the beautiful signal bridge in the nice office, and up there on that signal bridge on the carrier, man, it was like jets flying, huge radars. I mean, I could only imagine, What a different duty that would have been.
And it's awfully noisy, yeah. Noisy, and fuel back then. I mean, you could not escape the fuel, the smell of, the engines or the jets.
How many countries do you think you've mapped off that you've been to via the Navy?
Well, with the job I'm in now, that the amount probably went up by 20% just moving over here. Oh God, I wouldn't even know. Really?
The whole West Coast. You've done the world. You've gone around the world. You get your blue nose. You get your shellback. You get it all.
I've been port in Russia. All over.
Vladivostok.
Did med board there. That was pretty fun.
What ship were you on? This was right after the wall came down in Berlin and communism folded and all that, right?
Yeah, so 95, I went there on the USS Dubuque out of Sasebo, Japan.
What was the Dubuque? What kind of ship?
LPD, amphibious dock.
Gator freighters, yeah.
Flight deck, dedicated helo hangar, collapsible one. And we ran LCUs, one LCU, and then lots of Marine boat units and spec war stuff off Starboard Station, off the B&A crane. Did that for 2 years. That was another rewarding tour. Much like the Mount Hood. Between the Mount Hood and the Gator, I went to shore duty in Bangor, Washington, and had a buddy that was on the Mount Hood with me, Davy Jones, and he went up there to be a tug captain, a tug operator, which he did, and he did a hell of a job at it. And I was trying to get up there. I was like, I need to go up there. And so I called the detailer, and the detailer said, well, all I have is this TRF thing, which, okay, whatever. And the department head on the Mount Hood at the time says, you're going to hate that job. I said, I'll be all right. So I went up there, and I worked in the rigging shop in a nuclear submarine refit facility.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was okay. It was a great thing. I'd been on the Mount Hood. I was the LPO of Stream Division, moving bombs for God in America. Had great people I worked with. Respect on the ship. I had a lot of respect for everybody on the ship. It was just a really good, the Mount Hood was such a growing thing for me. I matured quite a bit, as a person, definitely as a bosun mate and as a sailor, learned a lot. And then I get to this place and they say, okay, well, the thing was the shop had 6 or 7 bosun mates and about 40 civilians. And the civilians were all, mostly former military, but, riggers, shipwrights, hardened guys, great guys. You go in the supervisor's office and they say, what'd you do before? And I said, I did this and I knew this and I did operated winches and I, ran, division and deck department and we had, all this equipment, all these people. And they said, okay, great. Well, we don't wear, you don't wear your crows here. So when you put your coveralls on, don't put one on it. And you're just going to wear coveralls and you're going to go down. And this is what you're going to do. You're going to go be that guy's gopher and you're going to go get shackles and wrenches and whatever the hell he needs. Oh, okay, great. So that was where I was headed.
Oh, wow. So the kind of a demotion.
Yeah. And
wow, was that tough on the soul or was that okay?
If I got pissed off, I'd just go, I'd talk to Davy Jones and he'd say, hey, go out and look up those mountains over there. Remember, that's why you came here. Yeah. And then we'd go out beer at the club in the afternoon and, work a half a day and it'd be okay.
I love his name, Davy Jones. That's like the Davy Jones's locker. Yeah. I mean, such a pirate name, right?
At one point he had that, over his bedroom door at his house, Davy Jones locker.
Oh, how awesome.
He passed away a couple years ago, but
oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, since I was over, he had a car accident. But
was he on the hood too? He was in the hood when I was on.
I don't know if he was on there. He was only on there for a couple of years. Excuse me. He was on the. I think he was on the Kansas City, and then he wanted to stay in the Bay Area, so he came over to the Mount Hood for a couple of years, and then he went up north to Bangor, Washington. Did 3 years there driving tugs, then got out, got his tug license, and came back to the Navy driving tugs as a civilian.
It's interesting to keep a Navy friend 30 years. I mean, there's some of the most precious people in your life. You don't realize it. I pushed the Navy away for 20 years. I just ran hard into the civilian world. And I'm like, I'm not looking back. That's over, whatever. Because you leave, like, they're just, antagonized. You're going to go flip burgers. You ain't never going to be shit. And I'm like, okay. Bullshit. I'm going to be rich, fool. It's like you have no idea who you're talking to. I don't have to wait to get rank or get P&A'd for my second class because they're not advancing signalmen anymore. You know what I mean? So I said there's no limits. But when I ran into Sip and Patrick and Hildebrandt, I don't know if you remember some of these guys. I know you remember at least 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
And, Robert Greer. There was a whole bunch of guys that were on the ship, same time you and I were. Mm-hmm. And we were out there seeing off the ship in over in Vallejo. They pulled it off the mothball, and they had it over there. They were getting it all secure, cleaned out, whatever, and towing it to Texas to turn it into razor blades, right? And we're all hanging out, and I realized that Sip and Patrick had stayed friends. They'd rode this civilian odyssey of life for the last 25 years together. Mm-hmm. And I go, how much better would it have been if I had had my shipmates with me? And I realized it right then, you know what I mean? It really blew my mind.
A lot of the guys I stayed in touch with was more geographically too. True. Like Greer, I ran into Greer. We were on, I think, my 5th ship together, the Abraham Lincoln. Okay. And Davy Jones, like I said, I ran into him at that, and then I was at Bangor and Bremerton, and then I was at Everett. He was a tug cap, so I ran into him all the time up there. Kevin Yocum used to be on the Mount Hood. I think he did 2 tours on the Mount Hood. I worked with him at my last civilian job in the Northwest.
His fiance was Ito, and she was what, OS, I think?
Cookie, yeah, OS. Yep.
Yeah, she was on.
Yeah.
And Yocum used to be my roommate, and I used to go to Sacramento with him in his tiny little car, whatever that was. It looked like a little Nugget. It was those Pontiacs. They look like road bugs. I don't know what
the little red one. Was it a little red car?
Yeah.
I think I don't think that was his. It was a Pontiac Le Mans.
Yeah. You remember?
It was actually that was Soner's car, I think. That was Roger Sone's car.
Oh, thanks, Son. I hung out with him the other day. Him and Bosun looked identical. They did. They both had big white beards. Yeah. I'm like, which one's Bosun? They had the same look going on. I'm like, boy, see daddy, all right. You're definitely in your father's eye. You know what I mean? Yeah. What a trip.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Oh, I don't know. Go. What do you got?
Well, basically, you get out. What year did you retire from the Navy?
I retired from the Navy September of 2005. I had done
okay.
So back to Bangor. I terminated that shortity. Luckily, I did a great job on the Mount Hood. I think I came off there pretty high ranked or rated, and made chief my first time up at the next job at Bangor. And as soon as I made chief, I put in my papers to terminate. They made me do a minimum activity tour 2 years there, and then I went to the Dubuque over in Japan. And came back from there after a couple of years, got divorced, which is what I should have probably done 10 years before that. And then and went to the carrier Abraham Lincoln. It was in dry dock in Bremerton. Took it over to Everett. And did almost 2 years on that ship. So I'm not doing too much time on it. 2 years on my first one, 2 years on my second one, 5 years on my third one, then 2 years on the Dubuque, maybe 2.5. And then, a couple on the Lincoln.
A lot of twosies.
A couple on the Lincoln. Call the detail there. What do you got? By this time, I am divorced. I have the kids in my custody at the house. And so I don't really want to I don't want to leave the area because my family's in Oregon. I have a lot of resources there. So, I go on the Rodney M. Davis, a frigate out of Everett. And by this time, I made senior chief right after I left the Dubuque when I showed up on the carrier. And then I went to the Rodney M. Davis, and I was there just as the ops LCPO. The way that's kind of set up there is if you're you have radiomen, signalmen, quartermasters, and bosun mates are in the same division. So on that ship, signalmen weren't part of comm. Well, signalmen and radiomen were part of nav, not comm. And nav was not part of admin; it was part of operations. It was.
So you moved to ops.
So I was the ops LCPO there for a couple of years, and then I was supposed to roll from there to go to Pensacola, Florida, and be like a knife and fork school teacher for LDOs and warrants, I think, or OCS or somebody. I don't know who was supposed to. Anyway. And the CO and XO said, "Hey, why don't you stay here and be our senior enlisted advisor, and you'll be a shoo-in for Master Chief." And so I did that. They got a hold of my detailer. He didn't detail anybody in. The BMC, they got a hold of the CMC detailer. He didn't detail anybody in. The CMC that was there retired. My relief came in, so I was free and clear to take over the ship and run with it. And that was a very rewarding part of my life, doing that. Thankful for that. Kind of funny, the 2-star admiral that I worked for here was the XO there that did that for me. So I was supposed to transfer off of there after 2 years because that's my thing. And they said, if we do this for you, we'll stay another year. So I did stay another year on there, and I was going to stay longer. But when I got back from Senior Enlisted Academy, which is kind of like CMCA school, there was a CMC there. So once again, I left.
Command Master Chief.
So detailer called me and said, you got to transfer. And so I went back to the Lincoln again and did Desert Storm on the Mount Hood, and I did Iraqi Freedom or something like that. Started that thing on the carrier.
Oh, wow.
On the Lincoln.
So you get out then, and it's like, what was life as a chief? Because I only knew life as in, petty officer. I never get that high. What was it like being a chief?
Well, it was good enough that when I was on the Mount Hood, I think there was kind of this plan. I was looking at, I wanted khakis. I didn't care if they were, gold bar khakis or anchor khakis. I was headed for khakis. And so I figured I was going to go be an LDO and that kind of thing. And even if I made chief, but once I made chief, the life of a chief is pretty good. I thought, do I want to go back to being an ensign? In hindsight, it would have sure paid a lot more in retirement. But, the life of a chief is, it's pretty good, especially, if you're not an engineer, you don't have to stand watch anymore and things like that unless you want to. I enjoyed it.
You get paid back for all the hard work. You get to the sweet spot of the Navy. Pretty much.
But with that comes a lot of responsibility. The chief's mess can make or break a command. There has to be, you're kind of the filter, but you're also the enforcer. You don't have to agree with what the command is doing, but you certainly have to make sure it happens as the senior leadership wants it to happen. Things like that. So sometimes that's tough. So sometimes there's just as in any, you've been in business before. You don't have to agree with the boss, but when you walk out of there, that you're speaking the same language. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on, and just the camaraderie. So you think you take like the camaraderie you had with your shipmates on the Mount Hood, and then increase that tenfold, and that's the chief's mess. It's that must be you.
Hang on.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to turn this guy off. I don't know why he's calling me. Get off the podcast, buddy. Go away. Stay away from my podcast.
Just take your camaraderie that you had with your shipmates and increase it tenfold. And then not only increase it Navy-wide, and increase it by anybody that's ever been in the Navy that attained that rank. And you always, I was out to, when I went for my little walk this afternoon, I was walking with a former chief that retired as a commander, and then a senior chief is who I was out, walking night with when had some gelato. And it's just, you have an automatic bond. We know some of the same people. We never served together at the same places at the same times, but we know the same people, the same names, we're in the same place, same clubs. It was, it's kind of a very unique thing. I don't think other services have it. Actually, I know they don't, but it's quite the bond.
I can see it. I feel it at the lower level. I can only imagine after that many years in and knowing that many more people, and you have 10 times the experiences now, right? I definitely get it. Now. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so I retired as a senior chief. My the last time I wore my uniform, I think, was about a year and a half after I retired. Actually, right at a year after I retired, I got dressed back up and went and pinned my brother. When he made chief, he made ETC.
Oh, nice.
A year after I retired, I put my uniform back on and flew to Hawaii with my wife, and had a great time there. And was able to do his last night of initiation with him, and got to see what he was made of, and it was a pretty good deal.
You get to do the old school chief thing.
There were
As that stayed as a tradition stayed with chiefs as the way it used to be, and that's one of the few things that remains.
That one was in this little point out in Hawaii, out at the Marine Corps base. I don't know if it was called, across over the island. Anyway, Kaneohe Bay or something like that. Anyway, it was they had a little cabin out past the airfield, and you had to leave your cell phone and any recording device at the gate. Yeah, it was okay.
Nice. Old school. There you go. Well, I mean, now they've done away with the shellback initiation, the blue nose. They've done away with so much stuff because the Navy's either become so integrated or PC. I mean, I'm just saying this from an outsider.
Yeah.
You know, it's changed a lot. I wanted to ask you about a couple of those things. And also that you've seen Michelle Howard, our former Chang, who's now, a 4-star admiral in Naples?
I saw her walking into the commissary or the exchange a couple days ago. Yeah.
What a trip.
Yeah.
So did she remember you from the Mount Hood?
No, I've never talked to her. I haven't actually talked to her. I did go to her house, though. She was having a soiree, and they were having her stewards or whatever were having problems rigging some kind of shade sails out by her pool off her deck at her house. And our RegCom, so the 2-star here that I work for, he's responsible for her house. And so he called me up he said, I know you know how to do this because I worked with them before. And so I spent a day over there straightening out her stuff and went and bought some supplies and did some nice splicing and put some little teardrop thimbles and some carabiners so her staff could take stuff up and down. And so I worked at her house for a couple of days. That was nice. Yeah.
Hooked it up, made it so it was unreppable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Got some nice navy blue 3-strand nylon and hooked it right up. It was sweet.
You should have left a calling card brought to you by one of your former shipmates.
Yeah, I keep trying to run. I keep meaning to run to her. She's actually got a change of command here in a couple of weeks. She'll be out of here in less than 2 weeks.
Well, if you can, tell her about the podcast for sure. We'd like to get it. One day I'll get her on there.
Yeah.
But, when you're high profile, you've got OPSEC, you've got other things to deal with. And it's like, I respect that, man. I'm not trying to just grab somebody on. But, when the right time comes, I mean, if I was some kind of high-tech, top-secret squirrel or something, I wouldn't want to be in a podcast till I was done with my duty, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're in Italy. What is life like in Italy, taking care of all that thing as a GS now, working for the Department of Defense?
Oh, it's my wife Karen and I love it. I got married after I retired from the Navy for the last time.
Yeah.
And
I've done it 3 times, so I'm just as cool as you. Do I get any extra rank for that?
Wish I'd found her years before. That would have made my life would have been so much easier. So much better.
Things would have
so much more fruitful. No, we got married after I retired, and went to Hawaii for the honeymoon, and then to visit my brother and stuff like that. And always traveled a little bit, took a couple cruises, and just really, really had the travel bug. And I'd been out for about 3 years working construction contracting with a buddy of mine, doing remodeling houses and things and various other stuff. And a guy calls me and says, "Hey, I got this gig up here in Everett, Washington. They're replacing the sailors with civilians on these boats. Do you want a job?" Sure. And it was a mass chief that I'd known that was from my hometown. And so they hired me up there and started out in the boathouse, and then a little while later I became the supervisor of the operations, maintenance, and boathouse operations and things. And then I think a year after that I became the harbor master, so kind of ships coming and going, fueling, all that stuff. And then this job popped up to do to kind of what I thought was do something similar in Europe. It was to run maintenance on the port operations boats over here in Europe. So I applied for it about, I guess, 3 years ago now. Got this gig over here working for, it's called EURAFSWA, Commander Navy Region, Europe, Southwest Asia, or Africa and Southwest Asia. And, I don't deal with all the, like spec ops guys that come through, or, ships going to, one-off ports. the ships where we have the places where we have presence, like Gaeta, Sigonella, Bahrain, North Africa, Djibouti or someplace, Rota, Spain. I just make sure they're man-trained and equipped, funded, assess what they do, make sure that they're doing things as they're supposed to, that the equipment's being maintained, that the money that we give them is they're spending it properly, and it's a really a fun job,
Oh, come on, you're in Italy. The food, the vibe, the weather.
I was joking the other day when somebody said, "What are you doing tonight?" I said, "I'm going on vacation." He said, where are you going?" I said, "Home." I said, "Every day at 4:00 I go back on vacation." What are you talking about?
It's the ultimate liberty call.
Yeah.
The Italians, like even John Joyner said, they know how to live, man.
Yes.
He says they've mastered it. You're like, they're not rushing anything. Like, why? No, take your time. Get it like they're trying to get you in the vibe. they're trying to get you into the vibe. You want to rush. Like, no, taste the food.
Yes.
Have the wine. Let's talk. There's no rush. We get all day.
Yes.
Then when you slow into that, you feel great.
No, there's no drive-through coffee here. You got to go sit down or at least stop in. It might only take you 30 seconds to have the cafe, but you got to get out of your car and go in there to do it.
Have you tried the cafe corretto?
Oh, I don't even know what's that?
That's when you get a hangover, you drink like a double espresso.
Oh.
They pour some grappa in there or something.
No. No.
Or sambuca.
No.
Straighten you out.
I don't live that life too much anymore, but no, now I just suffer.
Yeah, you're like, nah. Well, I mean, everything's so clean and tasty there, and
the food is great, the people are great, and the wine is so inexpensive.
Isn't it?
Just drink house wine everywhere you go. I don't know, 50 yards up the street here is a Enoteca, a wine shop. You take your, if you don't have your own bottle, you go up there, they'll put it in a little plastic, you'll put it in an old water bottle or something, $1.50, and you're back home with at least a liter, maybe more of wine. And if it's good, you drink it. If it's not so good, you cook with it. Either way, you're using it, right? And it's only $1.50. What do you want?
And it hasn't gone up that much. It's funny that you cook with it. Like when I used to work for Southern European Broadcast Network in Vicenza, I worked for the TV station when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have to edit the Cajun chef, and he's always put a little more wine in it. Put a little more wine, so he'd be fine over there in Italy. He was pouring like half a bottle of wine on everything he cooked.
Justin Wilson.
Yeah, you remember that one?
Suspenders and a belt.
Oh, he was hilarious, man.
Yeah, a little bit of wine, a little bit of wine for the sauce, a little bit of wine for me.
Yeah. The most hilarious show. But who have you run into anyone else other than Michelle Howard that's over there that you were Admiral Howard? Yeah, I'm a civilian, so I'm a little liberal with names, right? So free. I'm so free now. But I still have that Navy in me. It doesn't matter, man. That's still there.
Yeah, no, not a lot of people that I know, but when you talk to people, going to the bases, it is kind of funny. When I'm dealing with senior enlisteds and officers and things, I just think, God, that Master Chief is so young, he's only 40.
Master Chief looks like he's like, what is he, like 28?
He's only 40. Wow. Wow. He's such a young guy, things like that. And it's just a whole different deal coming to the GS side. It can be a little more stressful because, if you're, I don't know. I mean,
it's military-ish, but you're the civilian.
Oh yeah.
So different people pull rank on you. They're not like the people, he can't say nothing to me. He's a lieutenant. So what? But then when you look over there and there's a GS-15 coming down on you, or a 13, or your boss, you're like, oh shit, sorry. Or the admiral hits the top GS and it comes your way. That's another way. You know what I mean?
But over here, it's, maybe in the States, I think some places are like that, but over here it's not. It's kind of that, because everybody depends on everybody else over here. Everybody depends on everybody else's experience. Not only experience in their jobs, because it's 3-year tours. Bahrain, it's a 1.5-year tour. Subic Bay, I think it's 2-year tours. So it's short tours. So, you hire professionals, you treat them as professionals. We work for a lot of military. A lot of the military don't actually know the rules for GSs. They don't, at where I'm at, we don't have a problem with letting them know what the rules are, and they pretty well know anyway. But some of the installations, where you have a port operations office that has 30 or 40 military and 2 or 3 civilians, and they're senior civilians, but they don't utilize them as senior civilians because they don't realize what they have, I think. With the skill set that these people possess, that they've already done everything that you're doing and more, and now they're here to help you. And it's kind of, and in the civilian sector, we have our uniform too, just like everybody else. We put on the coat and the tie every day, and lace up polish the shoes and lace them up, and go to work.
Still get your military presence and your civilian presence.
Yeah, but you make sure you grow a beard or something just to throw them off a little bit so they don't.
Wear a mohawk.
Yeah.
Get a real pointy goatee, kind of like stand out, some strange glasses.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a civilian for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I go to the PX, I get my ID, and then they're looking at me, I have a goatee. Mm-hmm. They go, civilian, military, retired. I go, here.
Yes, there it is. Yep.
Yeah. But it's funny. The exchanges no longer are cheaper here in the States. I don't know if they make stuff less expensive for you in Italy. Is it even worth it, or is it better to shop off the Italian base? Used to be that they subsidize the shit out of everything.
Mostly you go to the base for staples that you can't. If you want bacon, go to the base. You're not gonna get. You're gonna get some good prosciutto and different things out here, and some good salami, some good cured meats, but it's not going to be bacon. Things like that. I mean, and it's not too expensive here. A little bit, some of it. Head down, to Bahrain and things are 3 times there what they are here for price. Just logistically, it costs so much more to get it there. Surprisingly, a lot of the Italians that are assigned to NATO, they are all allowed to shop at our commissary, and they eat it up on a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah, they go out and find a bunch of relatives to take care of them.
But price wise, I think that the base is typically more expensive.
The PX, the exchange system, changed its model to a for-profit business. Same with the commissary. So I looked at it. I did all the analysis. Now that we get the internet, it used to be mysteriously it felt cheaper, but you didn't really know.
No.
So I did all the analysis, and it was like, you could go shop at Costco and still be ahead or whatever. They had it all figured out.
It used to be just alcohol and tobacco, but that doesn't work in California.
No, they jacked it up. It's still $9 a pack on base now. It used to be $3.50 a carton, or 33 cents a carton when I was there in 1985 in Italy. And the Italians were paying $35 a carton. I don't know how I know that, but I speak Italian, and I accidentally found out. Mm-hmm. Perhaps a few times. Therefore, so are you planning on staying there much longer? Or are you expecting to come back?
I just got my extension. Actually, it kicks in here in a couple weeks, so I'll be here for 2 more years.
Oh, okay, maybe I'll have to come visit you one of these days and eat some gelato.
Mm-hmm. Make some wine. There's lots of wine. Yeah, we love it over.
Oh yeah, we'll just keep pouring wine on everything. They're like. There was such an abundance of it. The Italian kids didn't grow up drinking, but we did, because we're like, can't do this when we get back to the States. So wherever you're at, you want to max out, right? And that was it.
Well, that's the American way, live to excess.
So I don't know if it's like, I've had a pretty good podcast with you. I'd like to do another one with you in the future and talk more about the old Navy and the new Navy, because you've watched them grow. Mm-hmm. Because I know we could go on for another 2 hours, and I know you're going to get your rest weekend. Yeah. I think we had a great podcast here. Anybody that you want to give a shout out to from shipmates, or anything that you've listened to, and people that you remember? I know you've mentioned quite a few people in this podcast.
I think I don't think I would shout out to anybody. I think just as if I do more of this stuff, names are going to come up, and
you definitely paid homage to a lot of people, for sure.
And there are a lot of people that I probably should just PM. The Mount Hood was a learning experience for a lot of people, and right. So I maybe didn't treat some people with the amount of respect I should have when I was on the Mount Hood. Some of the, you do some things, you say some things, maybe smack somebody once in a while. No.
I like to hand out a few slaps. There's no love being said here.
But,
a couple of kicks in the balls, but it's okay.
So I had a great tour on the Mount Hood, and I enjoyed the people I worked with. A lot of respect for all the guys. A lot of them aren't with us anymore. It's crazy the amount of people that have passed on. I mean, there was an OS. He was an OS1. I was a BM1. We used to sit and watch together. And a couple years later, we're both chiefs over in Japan playing softball, and he just up and had a heart attack and died. I'm thinking, what the hell? But
yeah. Did you know OS2 Shirley or OS3 Shirley?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to party with that guy. That guy was a madman. That's going to have to come out of one of these dirty Friday podcasts. That's what they're becoming. These less respectful than the Monday podcasts.
they had a super squared away OS1. They called him Gunny Meyer, and Darwin Meyer, and
the name's familiar.
And he was they had Reeves and Meyer and a couple others. But we were playing soft. We were actually playing against each other. He was on another ship, and he just 33 years old, had a heart attack running the first base. Crazy.
Wow.
Sasebo. Yep.
What a way to go, man. I mean, I guess you went full Navy, but I got to say there's no other job like this in the world. Google might sell you like, you can come work at our Googleplex. We'll serve you food. We'll give you everything you want. And then I go, that ain't like the Navy. The Navy's living. That's freedom. That was life before the internet. That was actual adventures. And sure, there was some long, droning, boring times out at sea where you felt like you just hear the ship creak, going up and like, oh, okay, I've watched every movie in the berthing. Billy's story about how he has a snake farm in Alabama is getting kind of old. Mm-hmm. What do I do to entertain myself? Let's read a good book. And you, like me, we both read a lot of books out there, right?
That's all I did was read great training manuals and fiction.
The two get mixed up. No.
Yeah. But
hilarious.
But as from like listening to most of the guys, you remember all the good times. You don't remember the bad times so much. And even the bad times, you remember the good things about the bad times. Something may have just gone to shit, but you remembering the funny story of how it happened, not the fact that, the guy lost his finger, or, you know what I mean? You kind of remember stuff leading up to, there's always anecdotal, humor in a lot of the tragedy that we had to go through, sadly. But, or just, the ass chewing that you got, from whoever. You forget the ass chewing, but you remember what you did to earn it, and you probably enjoyed it.
Well, what's funny? What's funny is that I look at this whole thing and I go, everybody's got more than one sea story. We just did a general overview. With you, we've done the table of contents today. If we pulled the stories apart, depending how you feel later, and I try to protect everybody's like, hey man, nothing incriminating. We were all a bunch of wild disco dancers at some point in the Navy, either pre-marriage or after divorce or whatever. Everybody had a lot of great experiences. I'm not afraid of it, but I have kids.
Yeah.
So depends how much you want to leave to your legacy there, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to brag about what a ladies' man or I was or wasn't or whatever, you know what I mean? But some of that's going to slip.
Well, I don't think people at the saddle rack would always quantify as ladies, but
They've upgraded since then, man. The saddle rack's still here. It's still here in Fremont.
Yeah.
And as Ronnie Boatman once talked about, right? And that saddle rack, you're giggling on that one. The saddle rack is now in Fremont. It's like 2 football fields wide. And it's like the ultimate place. But I never went back then. I went there once. You guys had peanuts on the floor and stuff, right?
I don't know that.
Sawdust and peanuts?
I don't know that I ever actually went there. Really.
You may. I can neither confirm or deny.
I ran up and down Webster Street a couple times. And hit a couple places in Concord. But no.
What was it Hobies in Concord?
Hobies and Gallagher's, I think, or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, Hobies and Gallagher's. And then There's a guy who has a great blog. He goes by Dan the Navy Man, and I'm looking forward to getting him on here. But look up his stories. They're the real gritty, good stuff about the military back then in those days, especially in the era you were in, and just a little bit before, talking about Alameda and Marines and Navy and sailors and crazy women and all that stuff. It's a blast.
Mm-hmm.
But I appreciate you doing this from Italy, man. It's really nice. And for me, I get to learn something every time I do this. It's really cool. It's like it's the whole story. Because you get older, your memory gets a little. You just remember the nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to open up the folder.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can remember a little bit of stuff, but sorry for dragging on. I think that our podcast is about an hour and a half now.
No, you did a beautiful job. I like to get an hour and a half because listen, you're starting to listen to podcasts. What do you prefer? If you were driving from Naples up to Vicenza, it's like a 5-hour drive. You want a couple of good long ones to listen to in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what these are for, man. People get to know us through this.
Yep.
But, hey, you were, back when you were on the ship, I'm just throwing it up. I mean, you might have been the hammer. Bosun might have been the hammer. Some guys were the nail. Oh, well, you were the nail before.
Oh, yeah.
So was he. I mean, that's just how the cycle of the Navy is. But, it's a serious friggin' business. That's why I get all mad at all these shipwrecks about people not standing their watch properly. You've heard my podcast on that. It's like, even the unreps, it's so serious. The line tensioners, I mean, the cranes, the bombs, everything there is so damn lethal. That's why you need to wake the hell up and deal with that guy yelling at you because you can't pitter pat around that stuff. You got to be boss hog about that,
A lot of this stuff you don't get a do-over.
There's no do-over.
No.
You're dealing with some serious shit, and then you're going to go back to the States and work at Taco Bell. like Mike Dalton said, one day you're driving you're steering an aircraft carrier through the Indian Ocean. Next day you're working as a janitor.
It happens.
But somehow you've managed to stay out of that, and I'm definitely going to keep more in touch with you, and I know you'll think of more sea stories. I really appreciate doing this from Italy. So badass. And if you do talk to Admiral Howard, great. If you don't, well, we'll catch her at the next command. We'll find another sailor because the Mount Hood is everywhere. We'll get a hold of her.
Yeah.
We'll get a hold of her.
All right. Well, thanks.
Okay, brother. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for doing this. I think between this and everybody getting together, all the people putting together the reunions, it's a pretty good deal you guys got going. And hopefully I can get back there.
When are you coming?
Oh, I don't know. I'll have to come back next year for a few. I got so much, keep building up vacation time because, over here we just go on the weekends.
Are you mainly going to be in Oregon? What part of Oregon? And it's okay if it's on the podcast because it'll help other shipmates hook up together.
Oh, usually around Canby, Silverton area.
Is that southern, northern, middle?
Northern. It's up north, just south of Portland. Just south of Portland.
Okay. Well, Griffith lives near there. Mm-hmm. And Teresi, Hill, everybody, we could all converge and do an Oregon meetup when you're back. That'd be cool.
You just have everybody come over here.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Just everybody.
We'll hook it up, brother.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, Len. Ciao.
Oh,